I know you have an influence of various different styles of yoga in your teaching. Can you characterize kind of what your style is now, what you teach?
Yeah, well, my baseline is Ashtanga yoga. And I think part of the reason why I love Jivamukti is because the baseline there is Ashtanga yoga.
And what is Ashtanga yoga for people who might not know?
So Ashtanga yoga it's a set sequence. There's 6 series, and it's really based off the sun salutations. And just having practiced Ashtanga yoga for 21 years of my life, I find a lot of people who have type A personalities, hyper-driven, a lot of energy. This practice works because there's a discipline. And I mean, you start in Samasthiti right away.
Which is the mountain
Tadasana.
pose, Tadasana.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, you know, even though it may look like you're constantly moving, I think the more you get into that practice, everything is about coming back to Samasthiti. I mean, you have all the blueprint poses of Dandasana, Tadasana, coming back to that 0 count. So I think for a lot of us that maybe at one time had this uncontained energy, it's a practice that really helps to harness your energy and direct it. And so when I first was introduced to Ashtanga yoga, you know, I kind of gravitated out here to YogaWorks, and I met Mati. I remember that really resonated for me. And I've always loved the Iyengar method, but it took a long time for me to really resonate with the Iyengar method. I think I really had to just learn how to slow down.
So what's the difference between the Ashtanga and the Iyengar? You know, these are terms maybe people haven't heard of.
Yeah, and I find they're great complements to each other. Where the Ashtanga method is a lot of movement and it's repetition. So there's a moving meditation that happens in repetition because you become so familiar with the postures, you don't have to think, and it's such a breath-based practice. Where the Iyengar method is so into refinement, and I find it to be a much more intellectual practice in the way they use the instruction, they use the props, you repeat the poses over and over again. But what I started to notice with the Iyengar method is that my mind would get really still. And the poses would refine me in a way that it would wake up my dull spots. And over the years with Ashtanga, and especially, you know, in your younger years, you're more aggressive with your practice, I started to get a lot of injuries. And so I would go into the Iyengar classes. I mean, they were so abundant here in LA, and you know, there was amazing Iyengar teachers, including yourself. And I started to heal a lot of my injuries through the Iyengar method. Also, at one point, I had a really bad back injury from the leg behind the head poses. And so I really had to scale it back and kind of return to the fundamentals. And that's when I really started to have a whole new appreciation for the Iyengar method because it slowed me down. It showed me how to work with props. And when I started going into the teacher training path, it was also a great tool to enhance my teaching. I mean, you learn like 5 different ways to say one instruction for the front leg in Trikonasana. And then if you blend that, and this is why I like to fuse the two together, and then I would blend it from the movement and the breath, you know, based practice of Ashtanga yoga. And to me, that really makes up a beautiful practice of vinyasa flow, and that's what I teach.